Understanding the data type is again a very crucial part of any programming language. Hello everyone out there, and let's get started with the module 2. And before that, I would like to congratulate all of you. Really, accomplishing a task is important and you have taken time from your busy schedule to learn a new skill. Really, I'm really proud of all of you. So let's get started with the module 2. So what we are going to take here in the module 2. Again, we are taking baby steps, nothing to be worried about. Eventually, just watch out the movies, and by the end of this course, you will realize that, hey, programming is really fun and easy to do. So what we're going to do in this movie, let's first of all create a new module. And most of you might be missing out how to create a module if you haven't paid attention. So one more time, I'm going to show you, but this is the only time I'm going to show you. And how we can do that, click on this icon and click on the PyDev project. Now, regardless, you are on a Windows, Mac, it doesn't matter, because right now we are onto an Eclipse and we are onto a same platform. So let me hit on a PyDev project, click on what is the module you want to have, and I would like to have a module 2 and Python grammar version. Make sure that it is 2.7. If you drop down, you can see there is a 3 as well, but 3 is not installed on our system. We haven't talked about it and we are not going to talk about it. Now, let me just quickly give you a quick overview about configuring the interpreter. Although our interpreter is already configured, if I click on that, you can see the interpreter is configured, but in case you are the otherwise, so click on the quick auto config. If you are on a Mac, it really works really fine. But if you are on a Windows, just make sure click on the new and give the interpreter executable. It would be inside your C drive, the Python 2.7 folder. There would be a simple Python. So just browse to it and that's it. Okay, I'm going to hit cancel out here because I don't need it. Rest everything is quite okay. I'll click on the finish and we are having a module 2. The only thing that you're going to see is that interpreter is configured for this folder or the module 2 as well. Right click on this and click on the file. We want to create a new file. Make sure that module 2 is selected, not the module 1. Otherwise your file will go into module 1. But nothing to be worried about. Not such great thing that cannot be undone. And what we want to talk about is variables in this movie. I'll have a .py extension because it's super important. Click on the finish and that's it. The first thing, as always, we like to have is /usr bin/python. That's it. Now let's talk about the variables. So what are those variables? Giving a simple example, you are creating a game application, putting a high score where you are keeping the high score inside a variable. You are opening up a bank account where you are keeping the balance inside a variable, where you are keeping the username of the bank account inside a variable. So what this variable is actually? This variable is simply a memory space. You are hiring some space from the memory and assigning some value to it. The value can be anything. It can be an integer, the decimal value, the simple string, or the Boolean characters, anything out there. So variable is nothing much more fancy. You can simply say anything that can vary. Now this statement is taken quite literally in the Python. Let me show you what I mean by that. So if I simply say having a high score, and if I having a high score, I would like to have a high score of 100. Okay, that's good. Now, a lot of people might be coming from the C programming language or maybe a likewise language. You might be familiar of having, I want to declare an integer. So I would do something like this, int, and then simply ABC is equals to 3. But this is not the case. Python is a smart language. It automatically detects what type of data you are assigning to a variable, maybe an integer, maybe a simple string, maybe a Boolean value. So int, fly, string, and pretty much anything is not at all having any meaning in the Python. Just simply name your variable and be simplistic. But here is something that might give you a strange look onto your face. And in fact, if you might be a Swift programmer or any other language, this might sound a little bit awkward to you. So let me have that variable again, high score, and later on I decided that I would like to have some value like 13.45. Again, it is allowed. The Python interpreter is not going to complain. But later on, let's say you decided I don't like this values, I would like to have a string in it. I'll call this as a simple string. Again, Python is not going to simply complain for that. And if I simply print the high score variable, let me save that and hit the green button at the top, you can see the last updated value is being shown onto the screen. Yes, this might prompt to a many problem because we simply have that, but we have other data types to handle for such problems. But again, make sure that you understand that you can put pretty much anything inside a variable. Now moving on, we have got these things up, but let's talk about variables again. So we have seen that this is simply an integer data type, this 101. Let me just write it down. We are having the integer type out here. After that, we are simply a float type. Now we call them as a float or sometimes as double as well, because these are the dot separated values. Now here is a quick thing about the Python. Now if you want to, let's say, initialize multiple values, now this is known as initialization. I'm declaring a variable, I'm putting some value, that means I'm having some initial value known as initialization. I want to have multiple initialization. Let's say I'll call it as a balance, and that balance is equal to bonus. Right now that's a new count, and bonus, that is also equal to the current balance of the user. So I'll have a current balance. All this is having a value of 0.0. That means a complete zero. Now this is perfectly allowed. Now if you want to print anything inside that, let's say bonus, and that's it. I'll save this and run this. You will notice that the bonus is having a value 0. So is the balance, so is the current balance. So this is again allowed in the Python. Now one more great thing, that you can have this equal syntax, but apart from that, you can have a comma separated value syntax as well. Let's say you want to set two other values. I want to have a balance again. Let's modify the balance, and I want to talk about name as well. So how you can do that? First of all, first value. So let's say the user is pretty rich guy and he's having a $30,000 in his bank. I'll separate it comma, and then I would like to assign a name to it. Let's say the Kevin is the name of the person. Again, this syntax is also allowed, so I can verify that by printing the name of the person. I will save that again and run this again, and you can see the value is being assigned. So this comma separated syntax is also being allowed. Now this comma separated syntax gives you a really great way to swap out the values. Now this might be a problematic case in many other language. You have to have the temporary variables and all of that, but here we can simply do the things like, let's try to swap the values between the balance and the name. Again, it would not be a good idea, but let's try to have that just for the fun sake. And I'm having name, and I'll call it name is equals to. Now let me show you what the easy way is. I'm simply having a name, and I'll be having comma, and I'll have a balance. I'll save this. Now don't worry about the small red pop-up. This eventually will go, nothing to be worried. I'll save this. Now I want to print the balance and the name as well. Of course, it will not make much of the sense because the balance and the name are now changed. I'll call it as name, and I'll have a print of balance. That's it. Let me just save that and run this. So notice now the name is 3000, and of course it would make much more sense if I'll write and do a pretty good programming. So I'll say name is, and then I would be putting just a comma. You can also place simply the plus sign as well, and the balance, I would also like to make some sense here as well. I'll call this as simply balance is, and again separating by a simple comma. I'll save this and run this, and you can see name is 30,000 and balance is Kevin, which is not at all a good way, but I just wanted to show you the syntax. Again, this was all about the variable, how you can have variables. Again, one more thing is still remaining. Now Python also allows you to have a boolean value. So if the account is active, I would like to call it as active, and I can put the boolean value. So notice that the true means yes, the account is active, and there is also a false, and make sure that it turns out into the blue onto your Eclipse. Not maybe the blue, any other color will be, but any other color would also work. But make sure that the first letter is in the caps. You should be quite sure of that. A false in the small f is going to have a different meaning, and this one is a preset value for maybe 0, or you can say a false value, simply saying. So these are all the types of variable that I wanted to discuss. I hope it was quite an informative movie and quite a quick one as well. So let's move ahead on to the next movie.